From the News Channel 5 network, this is Urban Outlook.
Welcome to Urban Outlook. Thank you for being here. I'm April Eaton. Well, the votes are counted, sort of. The verdict is definitely in. Democrat Joe Biden defeated President Donald Trump in the 2020 election to become the 46th president of the United States, making Kamala Harris the first woman and the first woman of color to be vice president. The history-making victory came after more than 3 days of uncertainty as election officials sorted through an explosion of mail-in votes that slowed the processing of some of those ballots. But joining me to talk about this history-making moment is our history guru, I guess we'll say, Dr. Larotha Williams, Jr., who is professor of African American, Civil War, Reconstruction, and Public History at Tennessee State University. Thank you so much for being with us again, Dr. Williams.
Thank you for inviting me back. I appreciate the invitation.
Well, as I said, a number of history-making moments when you think about this election. The highest percentage in number of turnout. The Democratic ticket alone received the highest number of votes in history. And of course, we have the Kamala factor, Senator Kamala Harris, who is the first woman, the first African-American woman, the first woman of Indian descent to be the vice president-elect of the United States. When you look at those results, what do you think about that?
It's amazing. Just the turnout, because it seems, as I reflected on it, and I spoke with one of my students after class yesterday for about an hour about what I thought, and for me it seems as though the effort to suppress the black vote began in the beginning, and I guess what I'm trying to say is it seems as though they caught it coming and going, if you understand what I mean. The registration efforts were arrested in some way. Efforts to register to vote was made very, very difficult, but nevertheless, you had a lot of people register to vote. Then the process of voting was difficult because it wasn't just like you could show up early and vote, or you could show up at election day and vote. You had to vote within the context of a pandemic. And I understand that we have risked our lives to vote in the past, but that was an individual decision. You never had to think about how it would impact your family or your community. Then you have voter intimidation. As you get close to the election day, you see the pickup trucks appear out of nowhere, brandishing flags, and this might have frightened several people from participating in the process. But then they vote in large numbers. And we find after the election, after victory seems in hand, all of a sudden, those votes aren't any good. Those votes are illegitimate. Those votes don't count. So in my mind, it seems as though we've done everything that we were supposed to do in a big way under adverse circumstances, but our votes are illegitimate. And I made this comment. It's kind of flippant at first, but as I thought about it, I said that I might have been onto something. Donald Trump rose to political prominence by floating this birtherism idea, right? That Barack Obama was illegitimate despite being born in Hawaii, despite excelling at Harvard, despite excelling in Chicago and becoming president, even though he did everything that we are admonished to do as citizens, his presidency was deemed to be illegitimate. And I'm finding that this is being applied to our votes, particularly our votes in Georgia and in Philadelphia and in Detroit.
But Dr. Williams, there were the polling of or calls made to all of the election officials in each of the states, those folks and secretaries of states that were responsible for running the elections in their states, and they found no widespread incidents of fraud. Yeah, there took us some things to go through, right, to get to the polls, but the numbers show 91% of black women voted, 80% of black men voted during this election. So despite all of those challenges and the discussion moving ahead, it seems like that we still did what we were supposed to do, at least to get out the vote. No matter what side you were on, people thought enough of this election to cast a ballot.
Yes, yes. And it'll be interesting to see how this impacts future elections.
Yeah.
Because there's already a certain level of frustration anyway. Because some people felt as though, the Biden-Harris ticket was what was out there, but they didn't think that they went far enough. But nevertheless, you're going to get out and vote anyway. And then there are others who might have believed in the process. And nevertheless, with all that is transpiring now, I can understand a certain level of frustration that might be growing, of anger and righteous anger at that might be brewing as a result of all of this that we see. So
I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I'm just curious from a historical perspective, when you look at the trying times we've had through the years as African Americans to be able to vote, first of all, now we get the chance to vote. And now it seems like they're from the other side, led by the leader of the country at this point, until January 20th of 2021, of course. But this sole thing that the election wasn't fair. How does this mess with democracy and the whole idea that this was a process that wasn't broken, but some people are saying that it was?
The process, and looking at it historically, the process always seems to work until it works a little bit too well for us, if that makes any sense. I'm trained in Reconstruction, and I thought about how yesterday was Veterans Day, right? And you had 180,000 black soldiers fight for the Union. The war ends in 1865. The 15th Amendment is passed in 1870. Then 1871, the state of Tennessee elects John C. Brown from Pulaski, Tennessee, as governor of the state. And we know John C. Brown was a member of the Klan. So right from the beginning, it seems as though the system or the mechanisms in place that's supposed to protect democracy did not work in our favor. Then as we progress through Jim Crow, even though the 15th Amendment is on the books, African Americans still don't get the right to vote until the Voting Rights Act. But what I do see us doing is, even under the most adverse situations, there was always some element of hope. Even though they are killing black folks in a lot of places in the South, right? Even though our ability to vote, even though it's on the books, is not being protected, is not being enforced, we're still laying the groundwork for this to occur. And it occurs in places that you might think, like the NAACP and so forth, because they're thinking politically the whole while. But in other places that we might not pay attention to at first glance, like the women's club movement here in Nashville is one. They're holding meetings that involve Pearl High School students where young girls are talking about whether or not it would be better for blacks to form their own political party. So in sum, what I am suggesting is that we've been through some hard times, but we've persevered, and we've always known that the road was not going to be easy. But having said that, we've been citizens of this country for a long time. And I don't know if there's any group that has to have historically go through as much adversity just to embrace or engage in rights that we are supposed to have been born with.
Dr. Williams, I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, I do want to talk more about the Senator Kamala Harris factor and the fact that we have, for the first time in history, a woman of color sitting in the vice presidential seat, soon to be, of course. But we'll be right back after this. Stay with us.